Shay Ma'atotep. This is The Truth May Hurt, and my name is Raymond Witcher, and I am your host. I'm going to give you a video that I'm titling, How Can Christianity Not Be the Foundation of Racism? And we're going to look at a few things, and the previous videos, and really all of my videos are showing where racism came from, who started racism, who started the human race, what is the human race. But I'm going to highlight this brother here for a minute. He's a violinist. His name is Michael Prince. And I never knew anybody could play a violin like this. There's a couple people that I'm going to show you, but just a little bit of this brother. You can look him up. He's awesome. And if you notice, everything that we do, man, we add our flavor to it, and it's awesome. The bad part about it is the music industry and all the other industries, they steal our ideas and get rich. This is Michael Prince. He's a bad man. Okay? He changed the way people play violins. Okay? So, what we're talking about is how colonization spread around the world. Okay, it spread around the world through colonization. Okay, and what did colonization have up in the forefront? It had the missionaries. It had the Bibles. It had the warm handshakes. Now, tell me somewhere that colonization went and it benefited the indigenous people of that land. Show me somewhere that the indigenous people and the indigenous land is better after the settlers came in with their Bibles, that they came in with their missionaries. After they came in and they convinced you that you're a sinner, there's something wrong with you. What came in next? Their government. Their ways of governing. Okay? When Columbus came here in America, one of the things he said, one of the things in his diaries, other than the first people he saw when he got here were black, like seen in Egypt, he said that the native Africans in America were so nice that usually they didn't have to ask for anything, because when they knew that the settlers needed something, we just gave it to them. So he said, they'll be easy to convert into our ways and convert to our religion and convert into our government. Okay? So this thing is a system, and they use this same system everywhere they went. Okay? Okay, so everywhere they went, they brought in the missionaries. They came with their Bible. They were teaching you that you're a sinner and all of these things, and that your only salvation was through their God, Jesus. Okay? Once they sold you on that, now they bring in their government. When the United States came to America, the Indians didn't know anything about owning land. Nobody owned property. We didn't have a government. Same thing in Africa, in Egypt. You know, there were no prisons in Egypt. There were no orphanages. We didn't need jails. Their system came in and brought in a government. Well, we need penitentiaries. We need jails. We need nursing homes. You know, they converted us. And that's the biggest mistake we ever made. Okay, so this video is going to look at how Thanksgiving, initially they had a celebration after each massacre of the natives, until the president at that time said, listen, you know, we're just going to make it a national holiday and celebrate once a year. We're going to kill them like we always have, but we're not going to have a celebration each time. We looked at the Bible that they created for the Panari Indian on the previous video. We know that they created a slave Bible just to control the slaves. So when they were in New York, They convinced the native Indians to sell them Manhattan. We had no idea of deeds and property and ownership. So the Indians laughed and thought it was a joke because, we had no perception of owning land. So I think they ended up trading for some tools that valued up around $24 to $30. And they laughed at the Americans because they didn't think you could own land. Okay? So when you don't know, you're going to be a victim. Let me say this before I go any further. I talked with some friends. One of my friends, Arthur Cole, he mentioned to me, he said, Ray, the message you're getting out is a very good message, but we have to reach the youth. And I was like, man, are you right? And when I started this channel, I wanted to reach the youth. My target audience was the youth. But actually, I'm reaching more senior citizens. So what I need is, I see a lot of my South Boston and Halifax friends that you're watching, okay? I'm not reaching the youth directly. If you're agreeing with what I'm saying and you are seeing what I'm saying, even if you don't agree 100%, introduce this to your children, to your grandchildren. Bring them up and out of this believing system. We were not born to believe. We don't need to believe. We need to know. Okay, so this is the last song I'm going to do on Michael Prince. I just wanted to change it up a little bit and get a little something different. He's nice and smooth. Okay, but we're going to look at these things on this video and we're going to move forward. Okay? So I'm going to fade this on out. And we're going to start looking at some things. So when we're looking at how the Christians came in to teach us, that we're savages and that they are the people of God, bringing God around the world to save the world. You have to look at, we hear what they say out of their mouth, but don't forget what they did with their actions. Okay, the history of Thanksgiving from the native perspective. Okay, you can come and look at these things because they were going around killing us at will because they had a government in place that allowed them to do it. See, if we just go with the American history books, we're only going to get one side of the story. All right? There are always two sides to a story. Unfortunately, when it comes to the history of Thanksgiving, generations of Americans have been taught a one-sided history in their homes and schools. Okay? So I'm not going to read all this to you, but when you come down through here, it says the dominant culture of an historical story has been told from the perspective of the European colonists who landed near Plymouth Rock, Massachusetts in 1620. And they remember slavery started in 1619, okay? In this version of Thanksgiving story, the holiday commemorates the peaceful, friendly meeting of English settlers and the Wampanoag tribe for 3 days of feasting and Thanksgiving in 1621. Now, this is the English version, okay? But if you come down to the natives, they don't celebrate it, all right? The real history of Thanksgiving, all right? And it's coming down here telling you the mainstream version of Thanksgiving story paints the picture of courageous Christian settlers braving the perils of the New World. So these are the lies. These are the things that they're going to teach you in school, okay? These are the things, if you only limit yourself to learning what they're going to teach you in the American history classes, in their colonial education system, this is what you're going to get, okay? How great they were and how they, were making good relations with the natives, and they weren't. Okay, so you can read on down through here, but this is the same stuff that you've learned in the history classes. But what you won't learn in the history classes is why Thanksgiving is also a national Native Day of mourning It is important to know that for many Native Americans, Thanksgiving is a day of mourning and protest since it commemorates the arrival of the settlers in North America and the centuries of oppression and genocide that followed. Okay, organized by the United American Indians of New England in 1970, the fourth Thursday in November, Thanksgiving, is recognized as a national day of mourning for Native Americans and their allies. All right, you go there and here it says Thanksgiving Day is a reminder of the genocide of millions of natives, the theft of native land, and the relentless assault on native culture. Participants in the National Day of Mourning honor native ancestors and the struggles of native peoples to survive today. It's a day of remembrance of spiritual connections as well as protest of racism and oppression which Native Americans continue to experience. So what I'm showing and what I'm trying to tell you is we have to really educate ourselves to what's outside of the circumference of the circle that they put us in, the European educational system. We have to know more than that. We have to know everything that's outside of what they want us to know. Pay attention. Texas just passed a bill that's making it mandatory for Bible verses to be taught to students in school from grades K through 12. Listen, they're trying to implement back the colonial system again that has worked for them. You remember in the previous video I said, anytime you have a recipe for a cake, a great cake, I don't care what kind of cake, red velvet or whatever, and it's a great recipe, as long as you follow that recipe, you'll get that same cake. This is why they want to bring back it mandatory in the state of Texas that we teach your children from K through 12, grades K through 12, biblical scriptures. They want to drill this back into your children's head. My friend Arthur Cole, we were talking and he said, Ray, how do we reach the youth? Your message is great, but it's not getting to the youth. This is where I need the people that are watching this. I need you to take it to the youth. Take it to your sons, your daughters, your grandchildren. It has to reach them. I mean, this can't die with us. So I said, Cole, you're right, because I was approached a couple of people in their 20s, maybe mid to late 20s. And the brother said, man, to be honest with you, I don't care. I was like, wow. He said, man, I'm just, I really just don't care. So when you're trying to show someone, especially youth, something about our history, something about how damaged, how much this system that we've been forced to live in has damaged us, and I want to share with you the truth, the youth aren't even interested. I don't want to know. And the brother was honest with me. He said, man, just to be honest with you, man, I really don't care. Okay, I can accept that. But man, if you could just see what's coming down the road for you, because if you're blessed with longevity, let's say you make it into your 70s and 80s, you really should find out what's going on now. Okay, so it hurts, but at the same time, I can only be a presenter. I'm not a colonizer. I'm not an enslaver. I can't take you and drill this in your head. But we have to find a way to get this message to reach the youth. Okay, that's my point. And I see some of my friends been knowing all of my life. I hope that you're sharing this with the youth in your family. Okay, give them a fair chance. Okay, so just do a search on, did racism come with colonization? And it's a lot of information out here. You can, oh man, hold on. Okay, if you just do a search on your search engine, did racism come with colonization? There's a lot of information in here, and I'm just going to introduce you to it And you can come back and just read. Just come down and read through this. Racism, discrimination, legacies of colonialism. All right, but I'm just going to open up this one for a second and show you a few things. And when you come on down through here, all right, which came first, race or racism? And he's done a study, okay? But if you come down here, if American Indians and their mestizo descendants were less human than Europeans, then the confiscation of their land and their gold could be justified. If Americans were less human, if Africans were less human than Europeans, then their confiscation of their very bodies could be justified. Better yet, if Europeans could conclude that Africans were particularly well-studied, well-suited to slavery, then they could argue that they were acting in the best interests of the enslaved. In accordance with the divine plan for their earthly improvement and heavenly salvation, we're savages, you know. Lazy people need the discipline of slavery. You see what they're saying? This is the discipline that we need. They had to downgrade us in order to be able to. This is through colonization. This is also through the missionaries. They're setting this up. Lazy people need the discipline of slavery. Rhythmic, athletic people could work long hours in the hot sun and not be bothered. Who did this study? Well, you know, childless, violent people need to be controlled for their own good and the protection of others. This is where the stereotype of us started. The origins of complimentary stereotypes about Black Americans then can be found in the justification of the slave trade. Okay, they're not going to teach this in the history books, but what I'm trying to show you is, why are we so confident in a God that they gave us, they forced on us? They didn't give it to us, they forced it on us. And still today in 2026, this is the best thing that we have in our life is Jesus Christ. Come on. Okay, you have to understand that this is a system, and they ran this system everywhere they went. If a culture holds a premise of spiritual and temporal inequality, if a hierarchy exists that is unquestioned even by its lower ranking members, as in the Indian caste system before the modern era, there is no incentive to deny a full humanity of underlings in order to treat them as impure or unworthy. However, if equality is the norm, groups of people within the society who are so despised and disparaged. Now, coming back and editing this in, because when I originally did it and I edited and looked at it, you couldn't see the writing over here. All right, so we're looking at how European colonization led to racism. European colonization established racial hierarchies and systemic discrimination, creating legacies of racism that persist globally today. All right, the historical origins of colonial racism. European colonization began in the 15th century and included a colonial model of racism. Read it again. Introduced a colonial model of racism that varied among powers but shared a common theme: the perception of colonized people as inferior or other. British often maintained strict separation between themselves and indigenous population, fostering racial superiority as seen in British India, where local soldiers were segregated from British forces. The French promoted cultural assimilation through the evolved system, emphasizing European cultural superiority rather than purely racial distinctions. European cultural superiority rather than purely racial distinctions. Belgium and Portugal implemented harsher exploitive systems. See, Belgium, man, when I showed you my YouTube page and I asked you to watch I asked you on my page to go back and watch what about the African and Congo Holocaust. That's what this is talking about. Okay, it's talking about the indigenous population false and racial superiority as seen in the British India and the soldiers segregated from British sources. And when you come down here, it's talking about Belgium and Portugal implemented harsher exploitive systems. That's the system. This is the system that Leopold and Portugal implemented. They were cutting off the Africans and the Congolese hands and feet and legs if they didn't meet their quota of collecting rubber or whatever they were assigned to collect so many pounds of daily. And they cut this man's daughters. Well, they cut her up and boiled her in a pot and made him eat her. So go back and watch this video. Excuse me. What about the African and Congo Holocaust? Then watch the African Holocaust finally exposed. I did videos on these things. And then please go up here and watch the Jamaican Holocaust. You know, Jamaica is a small island, but their policy here in the hidden Jamaican Holocaust was they didn't feed them, they didn't give them health care. Their policy was we can buy another African nigger cheaper than we can keep these alive. So the Holocaust in Jamaica wasn't about, it was about killing you. Okay, so here when you're talking about the Belgium and Portugal implemented harsher systems, dehumanizing indigenous people and equating their value to labor, capacity, and skin color. These practices entrenched implemented social hierarchies, entrenched social hierarchies, and normalized discrimination. All of this was done through Christianity. Christianity, colonization, slavery, they go hand in hand. You cannot separate Christianity from colonization. You can't separate colonization from racism. You can't separate racism from slavery. All of this is listen, all of this is a package. All of this is a part of the recipe. If you take one of these things out, the whole system falls apart. Just like if you were to take eggs out of a cake, nobody gonna eat that cake. This is a part of the recipe. We can't separate any of these things. All right? This is what I'm trying to show you. Okay, bear with me. Mechanisms of racism during colonization. Colonial powers use legal, see, once they came in to the indigenous people and they are able to set up their legal system, their government, their churches, man, you just lost everything you have. Mechanism of racism during colonization. Colonial powers use legal. How did they get legal? They took over your land. Economic. How did they get economics? Because they make you work for them. And social structures. What social structures? Racism, segregation, you inferior. Social structures to enforce racial hierarchies. Segregation, forced labor, and violent suppression were common. All of this is through Christianity now. With European identity defined and opposition to colonized people. in South Africa, colonial and slavery's era policies involved into apartheid, a formal system of racial segregation lasting over a century, illustrating the long-term institutionalization of racial discrimination. Britain's empire relied on systemic violence. See, Britain, man, was one of the most violent, well, all of them. I can't give one more credit than the other, but man, these were some brutal people is what I'm trying to show you, and all of them were Christian. Think about it. Every single one of them brought you this Christian God to tell you how good he is, and these are the ones that are doing these things to you. Because when we surrendered to their colonization as, oh, well, we're sinners, and thank you so much for coming. I didn't know I was a sinner until you came, and thank you for coming and saving me. Once they get to this part, they bring out their systems of control. A formal system of racial segregation lasted over a century, illustrating long-term institutionalization of racial discrimination. Britain's empire relied on systemic violence to maintain control, exporting racial motivated subjugation across Africa and Asia. The title of this video is, How Can Christianity Not Be the foundation of racism? How can it not be? It was the most psychologically controlling factor of colonization, slavery, oppression, and everything else. Okay? So how can we just take Christianity out of this equation? Because if you take Christianity out of this equation, none of this will work. Okay, you can't separate it. Okay, I'm trying to tie it up so that you can see it. Contemporary legacies. The legacies of European colonization continue to shape modern societies. Structural racism persists in economic, social, and political spheres, particularly affecting people of Africa, Asian, and indigenous descent. In Europe, racialized communities face wealth gaps, sounds like America. Limited access to education, sounds like America. Housing and financial services, sounds like America, sounds like Africa, sounds like Jamaica, sounds like Haiti, sounds like all of the Caribbean islands. They're using the same recipe because it's guaranteed to give the same results. So how can you take Christianity out of this equation? Have you ever gone to church and seen the people in Jamaica in church? How crazy they're acting? Have you seen the churches in Africa? People just passing out. It's just crazy. They're under a spell. Okay? All right. So European racialized communities face wealth gaps like they do in all of the African nations and countries and communities. Limited access to education like all of the communities in the Black nations and Black communities. Housing and financial services, we're all suffering from the same thing. Listen, our luck isn't that bad, Black people, brothers and sisters, Africans, Haitians, Jamaicans. Our luck isn't that bad as Black people, that all of us on earth are experiencing the same thing, the same problems, wealth gaps, limited access to education, poor infrastructure. Our luck isn't that bad. And the only way that this could be continuing to happen or has ever happened to us is if they're running a program. That program is just like that recipe for that cake. When you have a program, this educational program, anything that has program on it or in it, church program, school program, community program, they have an agenda. And you need to understand what program is being run. So in order for these things, these identical things, contemporary legacies, to be happening over and over and over again, is not because our luck is bad. It's not because we're sinners or that we're unintelligent. All of these things that they stereotyped us is because we're running and functioning in the program that they set up for us. Jesus Christ, Allah, none of these things existed. So until we give that back, we're going to be in problems. Okay, reflecting and doing impact of colonial policies. Globally, former colonies often struggle with socioeconomic inequalities. Every black nation is going through this. As political independence did not always coincide with economic decolonization. None of us have recovered. Well, there are a few black nations in Africa that are doing great. Okay, but we're looking at us as a whole. Not just Africans, but look at the Asians. Look at where they colonized in India. So when I say the black nations, don't get me wrong. India and everywhere else in Asia that they colonized, man, they still getting the shit beat out of them. Okay, CHIT. Okay, nobody but a few places have recovered. And these greedy, you know what, want to come back and get that. These political independence did not always coincide with economic decolonization. These legacies manifest in some systemic decriminalization, xenophobia, and social marginalization. This is a program, okay? And the thing that, how you know that Christianity plays the most significant role in this, and why Christianity is the foundation of racism, is because it is what everybody in the whole country is singing. Jesus is gonna save me. When? It hasn't done anything for you. Jesus Christ is what they use to do this to you. God, the Holy Ghost, the Trinity, Mary, the mother of God. God has a mother. Come on. All right. So I'm just showing you. The whole time that we're celebrating how good Jesus is, and giving all of the credit for every little thing that goes right for us, to Jesus. You gotta stop that, okay? Because it's not true. Addressing colonial legacies. Experts emphasize that decolonization is incomplete without addressing the structural and cultural remnants of colonialism. The structural and cultural remnants of colonialism. And religion is right in the middle of it. That's what I wanted to stop and point out. Efforts to dismantle systemic racism require political leadership. We don't have it. Dialogue, honest dialogue. They haven't been honest with us since 1619. And comprehensive policies to promote equality. We don't have them. Human rights, we don't have them. They're trying to take away our voting rights right now. If you're looking at our situation, we are in a regressive direction. We're going backwards. They're taking us backwards. They want all of this. Trump wants voting protection, whatever it is he's made up. It's to keep you from being able to vote. The Republican Party has screwed up so bad. And Trump said, 4 years ago, 8 years ago, the Republicans can never win another fair race. They know they can't win a fair race. So when it's talking about human rights, you don't have any. They're trying to take away your voting rights, which is in the 14th or the 15th Amendment. And we've never had our voting rights, okay? And the few that we trying to have now, they want to take it back, all right? Human rights and sustainable development. Recognizing the historical roots of racism is essential for creating equitable societies and mitigating the long-term effects of European colonization. We refuse to go back and recognize the historical roots of racism is essential for creating equitable society. As long as they're telling our history, and as long as we don't have control of educating our children with accurate history, we don't stand a chance, because all of this is a part of the whitewashing and erasing accurate history. That's why I do my YouTube channel. That's why I really can't care about how people feel about what I'm doing, what I'm saying, and they're going to judge me based on this bullshit. Okay, this that we have not decolonized. We haven't. We're still under. The only thing they did was take the chains off of us. Nothing else has been done in our favor. All right. In summary, European colonization institutionalized racial hierarchies. Okay. In summary, European colonization institutionalized racial hierarchies and discrimination, creating enduring social, economic, and political inequalities. Understanding these historical foundations is crucial for addressing contemporary racism and promoting justice in post-colonial societies. We haven't made it there yet. Okay, and everything that we have the most confidence in and find the most security in is Jesus. It's 2026. Okay? And now, if you're paying attention, Jesus, God, the Holy Ghost, the Trinity, Mary, none of them have softened any of these people's hearts. They're trying to bring back the structure of this colonial system right now, today. This is what they're trying to bring back. Okay, anytime that you have political people, Donald Trump himself, putting up pictures of Barack Obama and his wife as monkeys and this, that, and the other, and nobody's saying nothing about it. You know, it's like, I mean, the Republican Party is not going against this man. I don't know, maybe he was. Well, maybe he was sent by God. I don't know, by their God. He wasn't sent by mine. He was sent by the same God. Maybe this is the second coming of the same God that allowed us to be slaves and that wrote in a book that I was made to be a slave. Well, maybe he is the one. Maybe he is their chosen. I don't know, because when you go to Galatians chapter 4, read verses 22 through 24, this is the King James Version, and when everybody hears the Bible say, "For it is written," they go all crazy. But "for it is written" means, only thing "for it is written" means is that the Bible says, and usually this is the only place you will see it written or heard anything about it is the Bible. So it says, "For it is written, Abraham had two sons, one by a bondmaid and the other by a free woman. But he who was of the bondmaid was born after the flesh, but he of the free woman was by the promise, which things are an allegory. For these are the two covenants, the one from the Mount Sinai, which gendereth to bondage." It's Hagar. Now let's look at it in the NIV right quick while we're here, because I want you to understand this. So we're going to go down to the NIV. We want to pull it up. It says the same thing. "For it is written, Abraham had two sons, one by the slave woman." So the bond woman is the slave woman, and the other by the free woman. His son by the slave woman was born according to the flesh, but his son born by the free woman was born as a result of the divine promise. These things are being taken figuratively. In King James, it says it's an allegory. The woman represented two covenants. One covenant from Mount Sinai and bears children who are to be slaves. So when Donald Trump and these people are coming back and they're trying to bring back in the prayers in the school and teaching biblical stuff, listen, an allegory means a made-up story for political reasons. Okay, so the Britannica says the allegory is a symbolic, fictional narrative that conveys a meaning not explicitly set forth in the narrative allegory, which means encompass, such as a fable, parable. Okay, so it's not real. Okay, so everything that they're saying in Galatians chapter 4, verses 22 and 24 is not real. Abraham isn't real. Sarah isn't real. Ishmael, Isaac, none of them are real. All of it is a fable. All of it is an allegory. What does figuratively mean? Okay, so when you're talking about allegory, and if you look up some of the other definitions, it says that an allegory is a made-up story for political reasons. Okay, but that's what King James says allegory, in the New International Bible says figurative. So what is figuratively? Figurative language refers to words or phrases that are meaningful, but not literally true. If you say that the news hit me like a ton of bricks, you are using figurative language. Listeners understand the news you got was deeply moving. Okay, so when people hear these things read in the Bible about for it is written that Abraham had two sons, one by a slave woman and the other by a free woman. His son by the slave woman was born according to the flesh, but the son born by the free woman was born as a result of divine purpose. These things are being taken figuratively. The two women represent two covenants. One covenant is from Mount Sinai and bears children who will be slaves. It's telling you that this isn't real. But they take this man and made us slaves because people don't know how to read the Bible. People are not holding the definition of the words and inserting it into the scripture. It's a made-up story. All of it. Okay, I tell you what, get somebody to explain to you and then you explain it to me. What is figuratively being talked about in these verses? What are the allegories? If the allegories aren't Abraham, the two sons, the slave woman, and the freed woman, what is figurative being spoken and allegories being told about if it's not the two covenants? Now that just messes up everything, doesn't it? Because there are no two covenants. You can read, okay? So let's get out of these things that this colonial system has gotten us so wrapped up in our brain and so tied up in our mind that the psychosis that it has us in, we don't even know what's real anymore. Listen, this totally destroys everything in the Bible about Abraham and Sarah. That means that everything from Genesis chapter 11 through 25, you can throw it out of the window because it's telling you that all of it is an allegory. All of it is figuratively speaking. Got it? Can be denied the prospect of equal status only if they allegedly possesses some extraordinary deficiency that make them less than fully human. Okay, so what I want to ask you is, what is the definition of the human race? Well, before I do that, let me go back to this page. So if you do a search where you can find this, I want to make sure you can find it. Did racism come with colonialism? There's a lot of things in here, okay? And you can read this and make your own decision that colonialism is colonialism the foundation of racism? And I say yes. How colonialism led to the invention of race and why that still matters. Okay? So you can open up any of these, but this one is another good one. Okay, and you can just read through here. Okay, you can just come down through here. How could such conquests be justified by people who saw themselves as good Christians? And it's all about they're not good Christians. This is something that they made up. Okay, you can come on down through here and read these things. I'm just introducing you to them. I don't want to get stuck on one thing, but the information is there. If you just do a search like I did, you can come through here and read about racism, discrimination, the roles of racism in Western colonialism, and it's there. But here's my question for you now. What is the definition of a human race? And you have to take the two root words, which is race and human. Okay, so if you look up the definition of human, of relating to the characteristics of or having the nature of people. So we're talking about a category, people. Okay, now what's the definition of race? Okay, so when we're talking about human race, it was invented. Okay, at first it was just we had competitions. So the difference in between competitions and races, let me see, is this the one I want? I think it is, right? So when we're talking about competitions and we're talking about races, there's a thin line because we have things like horse races, we have car races, we have track and field sports races. So races and competitions have a relationship. What is the difference? The difference is in the 15 and 1600s. In the 15 and 1600s, the Europeans and the colonizers invented the human race, which became a competition between the different shades of skin color and the things that they invented to make up a human race. So I did a search on is race a competition? I have to edit this in and I only have like a minute and a half to do it. When we're talking about the human race and we're talking about race and we're talking about root words, race the question is a race to establish one winner? Yes. In many competitive contexts, a race to establish one winner is a common structure, especially in sports tournaments, political elections, and single winner selection systems. So when we're talking about the human race was designed back in the 1700s to assure that the winner was always going to be white. It's going to help us establish white supremacy. And it was also designed to ensure that blacks always came in last, and they wrote laws to ensure that this race-based society, this race-based system would ensure white supremacy. I'm just editing this in because I got a little mixed up over there, but I'm throwing this back in and I'll see you next week, or I'll see you when I make my next video. For a very long time, but that era is up. That era is over. The good news, and I hope it's good news, is that this whole system is getting ready to crumble. They're at the last stands like Joan Custer, okay, and they know it. This is why they're trying to force people to teach their children in school from K to 12 the Bible. That's the last thing you want your children in, is in another colonial educational system. Is starting with religion, teaching them a white God. Believe me, man, they had a fit when we said Santa Claus is black. You know, so if you go after their Jesus, you're going after the fundamental foundation of how they ruled the world. Okay? So when we're talking about how can Christianity not be the foundation of racism, look at everywhere that they went and colonized and brought in their missionaries, their government, that the indigenous people of all of these lands are still not trying to recover. Show me one place that they went with this Bible, with Jesus, building churches, teaching you how to pray, that the indigenous people of that land are still suffering from that system. You can't. Show me one of these places, Jamaica. I mean, Jamaica's got it bad. They got it almost just as bad as Africa, man. They love Jesus, you know. You show me one place that they took colonization and the black people, the only thing they have and that they're holding on to, depending on and counting on, isn't Jesus. Jesus, everybody's waiting on Jesus. And Jesus never existed. The letter J didn't exist until 1524. You didn't have to finish kindergarten to know that that's a lie. I want you to go and look at, I'm going to show you the videos I did on it. I did 3 videos. One night a thought came across my mind. I'm like, we always hear about the Jewish Holocaust, how horrible it was. And after doing my research and my study, and knowing how bad black people have been treated all over the world, I can't see a Jewish Holocaust being worse than the Holocaust that they could have probably done on us. So I said, it have to have been some black Holocaust. Okay? And when I did my research, the first one that came up was the Congo Holocaust. Okay? King Leopold. He wrote letters to the missionaries alleging, well, it's alleged because when colonialism was supposedly ended by Belgium and King Leopold in the Congo, they burned everything. His orders were for you to burn everything, burn all of the books, burn down everything, and that's their common thing. When if they have to, they burn down the Library of Alexander. Okay, in 1883, a letter from King Leopold of Belgium to colonial missionaries is a widely circulated document on the internet that outlines a canonical exploitive strategy of evangelization in the Congo. It instructs missionaries to enforce obedience, detach Africans from their native culture, and prioritize Belgian colonial interests. Man, I have it. I'm going to show you. You can go and watch my videos. And I want you to watch these. I'm going to show you which ones. You go onto my YouTube channel, my page. Watch. What about the African and Congo Holocaust? This is the one that is talking about King Leopold right here. Look at the man sitting here on the porch with both of his hands cut off. Now he cut this man's hands off after he had cut his daughter up, boiled her in a pot, and made them eat his daughter. Also watched the African Holocaust. Okay, I know you've probably never heard of any of the African or the Black Holocaust because they put all of the attention on the little Jewish Holocaust where they killed 6,000 Jews. Well, and these Holocausts, you're talking about like 90, 100 million people, and our Holocaust never stopped. There's never been a Holocaust worse than the Jamaican Holocaust. Watch these videos. You see what they're holding in their hands? They're holding African people's hands that they've cut off because you didn't pick enough sugar cane. The penalty was we cut your hands off. Okay, so it's so much that we need to know that we don't. And there's so much hidden that they won't put it in the history books. That's why I do this channel, because I know when I leave this earth, my daughter, my son, and my grandchildren to come, man, I don't want them stuck into this thing because they're getting ready to try to repeat this thing. I don't know if anybody's watching and paying attention, And the only thing or the best thing that we can count on is the primaries, the November primaries, because they're going to rip this bad boy apart. Donald Trump has, this is their messiah. They have the racists, and I'm telling you, the racists of this colonial system that America was built on, that they refuse to let go of, that the Supreme Court represents. Something bad is really going to have to happen for this thing to be restructured, because it's never going to represent us. Okay, so as far as Donald Trump, great. I don't have a problem. Let him run his show, because his show is what's going to have to happen to strip this country down to where they finally dismantle this systemic racist colonial system. Okay, they are not going to change their mind. They want a civil war. Stephen Miller and all of these racists, man, they want to send us back to the doctrine and the dogma. We went over what dogma is. Dogma is when they put things in place that you cannot question. You have to have unwavering obedience to what they say. And if you allow them to teach this and put this back in the schools, man, we're set back 200 years. We're set back to slavery, because that's what their goal is. You're not going to pray your way out of this. I'm not going to make this video long. I just wanted to make a short something to show you that the descendants, now I'm talking to the people that are watching, which are the age group of me, my peers. I see you wanting, I see you watching. Some people may be 10 years younger than me. Some people may be a few years older than me. But we've got to get these messages to the youth. Because right now, man, they don't have a clue. The only thing the youth know is, I don't believe in Jesus. I'm not a Christian. I don't go to church. I don't believe in any of that stuff. Okay, well, that's kind of good. But if you don't know what's coming next, see, listen, the biblical Paul and all the rest of them, all they had was a vision. Okay, a vision is using your imagination to a degree to see the future. Well, there's nothing wrong with my vision. You know, I'm seeing the future, and I'm seeing through all of that garbage that they had us trusting in men that never existed. Okay, so I'm telling you, and that's why I'm doing this YouTube channel. Because, man, my daughter, my son, I'm not going to leave them naked. You know, when the day comes and I'm gone, I don't want to be not enjoying my eternity, because the ride that I'm experiencing of the human life through my daughter, my son, and my grandchildren is a repeat of mine. I don't want them to repeat it. I want them to get out of it. So if you are seeing what I'm showing you, and you're understanding that, take it to your children, take it to your grandchildren, let them see it. I'll say Ashe. Everybody have a great day. If nobody's told you to love you today, I do. Make sure you tell somebody you love them too and mean it.